Well, here's my debris field this morning. I haven't really been using this desk for anything creative recently, just for packing boxes and trying out a pen or two, but not really doing anything because I've set up my creative area in the gallery of my building. But I thought while I'm sitting here, I will just look at what is happening on my desk. I really do need to get this area organized, and it got messed up at one point, and then messier at another point, and then the virus happened, and anyway, it's just a mess. So let's try to calm ourselves and figure out what we can do. A recap of last week's exciting program. I have two of these, and then one I'll probably sell, one I'll keep. And in this particular case, I will keep the one that has one less ding in it. This has a little tiny ding right there, and normally dings don't necessarily bother me, but when there's only one, it sort of makes me angry. I should just drop it on the floor a couple more times and get a couple more dings. It's funny when dings bother me and when they don't. I'll have to write a monograph about that, Watson. I did find, though, a nib that fits more or less with what I'd like this to be on this pen. This was the nib that was in the other one that I just put away, and I swapped it over to the one I want to keep. It's a slightly flexible, I would call it a medium fine nib. It's not as fine as I would like it to be. Maybe it was shoved in too much. It's skipping here and there, and I don't know why it's doing that. It might be because it's just not situated on the feed correctly, or something. I don't know. It might be something entirely other than that. I really want the nib to be in here to be an accountant nib, one that has very, very tiny nib that's just ever so slightly flexible. That's what I think this pen needs, because it's so lightweight and so sort of delicate that it seems to want to whisper, and accountant nibs seem to do that in my mind. So the search continues, and I may not like it in this pen. Another pen I recently got last week, or earlier this week actually, was this pen, which is a dip pen nib and a dip pen holder, big honkin' number 8 size, and it has this kind of nib in the pen I just had in my hand would be good as well. Just very, very fine and so delicate, but very flexible as well. That could also work because it requires the same sort of sensibility. Your hand has to have a very, very light touch to make it work well. Now, as you can see from your vantage point, it has a nice wavy pattern, and I might be able to fix that. I'm just afraid to try. This pen that I got yesterday with the early Waterman Star nib, metallic nib with the slit that doesn't go all the way down. I guess Waterman did not make their own nibs for the first few years of their existence. which makes perfect sense that this nib looks the way it does. Because if this was made by a dip pen manufacturer, they could have supplied them with this nib thinking that this would be the right kind. And L.E. Waterman might have not cared or found that it worked well enough. I don't know how capillary action works, but I do think a breather hole is needed, and I do think the slit going all the way to the breather hole is needed. Unless it's a music nib. Or I don't know. Rambling. What is this doing in here? I I bought this at the Philadelphia Pen Show, I think. It has I'm just going down memory lane here. This has it's missing its little arrow that it's supposed to have on the bow of this thing. And this is all warped for some reason. It was probably heated and caused the warpage. But it did, in fact, work. And because it was working, I just kept it going. But these 61s, I honestly, it's a miracle that they work at all, because I would think that the sponge-like innards of this thing would just be more as likely to want to keep the ink inside as to let it go out. So it's just a funny design. Oh, what else do I have here in my... Oh, one of these. A Waterman Taper-Rite. I recently, fixed a bunch of these things, and I got a couple of them in the mail, and because I haven't sat at this desk, I sort of forget why I had them out and what kind of ink I had in them and what kind of drawing I was going to do with them, because I've been away so long, and I can't remember now why this is here. Someone recently bought one of these on eBay and broke the barrel taking the section out, which is very common in trying to repair these pens. And he asked me, I think, if I had any barrels for him, and I had to say, nope, I'm looking for 6 of them myself. And at the Fountain Pen Hospital baggie sale, they had baggies full of stuff for $50 a bag. There was a bag full of barrels for these pens, and I probably should have gotten them, but because they're so damn brittle and the sections are also differently manufactured, that I thought I would break half of them just trying to get them to work. So I just left them there, but maybe if they're there next time, I might buy them and cross my fingers that I'll only break half of them, because I do have, a good dozen of these things and a good 2 dozen of these that are broken. And they're not doing me any good being broken. These nibs can't be used on any other pen, really. I mean, they might be able to be put in some other pen, but it would have to be a very weird pen. So it's like a 51 nib. It doesn't really go in any other pen than a 51. So where this number 2 nib in here can go in almost any number 2 Waterman. You might have to play with different feeds, but it can go in any number 2 Waterman pen from 1900 to 1940. It'll fit. May not be perfect, but it would fit and work. The purists there are screaming at their computer right now saying, how dare you even imagine that? A Waterman number 2 from New York with that imprint belongs only in a Waterman number 2 pen from this era to that era, and that's it. Okay, I have an alternate fact. Now, my desire is to have a pen that is functional more than it is correct. It's nice if it can be correct, but there was a time when I loved Waterman pen nibs, and I didn't really, I would buy a Waterman 100-year pen that had a cracked barrel and a chipped cap and everything, and so the pen was kind of ugly, and I would put the Waterman nib in a Parker dual-fold senior, and I was as happy as could be. And that started my Dr. Frankensteining for real. The Parker nib that was in the pen was firm and hard and unsympathetic. Didn't care. It just did its thing annoyingly, and I put a pen nib that wasn't doing any good. See, this has the right number of dings, because this is, look at that, this is lots of teeth on that. Durwood, Dashwood. So anyway, and this is the wrong cap. See, this needs a screw cap, but I don't have any because they're all broken or chipped, and this slips on perfectly fine. Pen works perfectly fine when I'm here at my desk. So now this has a rigid nib. This is almost like an accountant nib, but it is an accountant nib. There you go. Feels more rigid than that, but this is what that other pen needs, is an accountant nib, a nib that has this range from very fine to a little less than that, little just from very fine to fine. This pen really needs a rigid nib, one that's like a bulldog, because it looks like a bulldog ate the end of this. Oh dear. Went to the eye doctor yesterday and got the news. I might just go blind. No, I need a couple of things done, but either one of them are urgent. One, if I understand it correctly, is there's some sort of buildup of tissue on my retina, and they have to go in surgically and scrape some of it off so I can see better. If I look at a straight line through my left eye, I see it as straight. On the right eye, I see it do this, make little loops, bends. And I also, it's like looking through a pair of binoculars, where one thing I see here and the other one I see sort of down here. So I have kind of double vision, and that needs to have a scalpel go in there and scrape all that off, which I don't want to deal with. Thank you very much. Yes, I will at some point. It's not something that needed to be done urgently. The other issue is some sort of glaucoma thing, which may need to be done. So I've got an appointment on June 1st to see what that's going to be all about with the laser surgeon. I was supposed to have this done a year and a half ago, but my back to Minneapolis to care for my father, who was essentially dying. He wasn't, on death's door at that time, but he needed care. And my brother asked me to come out and help. And I did, more or less. This nib is the one that I want to go on the other one. And this is an Eversharp nib, but it's not the right size. But this is, again, very, very faint. It's almost like an accountant nib. It's really, this one, this one almost acts like a pencil to me. It almost feels like this is an ink, this is pencil lead coming on the page. It's just it has a softness to it. It's very weird. This is a very weird pen to use. I'll have to get my friend Ted Clausen to explain it to me better, because I don't know how to explain it the right way. It's just this is a very different feel than other pens that even have similar nibs. There's something about this. Maybe it's just surprisingly smooth for a pen that's so fine. Maybe that's it. Doesn't have a scratchiness to it. Anyway, then the operation didn't happen because I was helping with my dad, and then I come back here, and then my insurance company said that they're not going to pay for my other doctors. I had to find cheaper doctors. Now, there's nothing different about this particular. My new set of doctors are perfectly fine, I'm sure. They weren't the bottom of their class or something, but I don't know why I had to change. But I had to change. Now, what is this nib? This is another nib this is an Aiken Lambert nib. This has a nib. See, this is similar to the one I just showed you, except this one has a scratchiness to it. A little bit, but it's still, it sounds scratchy. It doesn't feel scratchy. This is a very weird pen. Who made it? It has an Aiken Lambert nib in it, but that's not what it is supposed to have. Yeah, no name. Robert McKinnon is the owner. It's probably a National Pen Product pen. But what's fun about this one, this almost looks like a pick section, though. They had that beautiful wasp-waisted thing. What's neat about the pen is it's so long. When the cap posts just that much, rather than sort of coming down to here. And it's not because it's warped or anything, I don't think. Sometimes that happens when things are warped. But it makes the pen is really, really long. And yeah, this is not an accountant nib. But this kind of nib is similar to what I'd like in that pen, because it's fine and springy and lightweight and sort of delicate. The nib is almost too delicate for this pen, but again, the balance that pushes back that's so long is sort of what I like on nibs like this. Okay. Well, today I'm going to go downstairs and work a little bit on something. This was given to me, or sold to me, I can't remember, by my friend Nicola Pang, I think. God, my brain is just going. And I put this looks like it's a Schaefer nib. Is it a Schaefer nib? It's a Schaefer number 3 nib, because it fit in it. It's a weird pen. It seems to me that something's wrong with it. The clip doesn't stay tight or something, I forget. but I put it, this is another, oh, this is in my extra fine drawer. That's why all these things are coming out as so fine. But this one, this number 3 nib is just really beautiful. See, this nib might actually fit in this Wahl Eversharp that I'm trying to find the nib for, because it looks like it's the right size. And this is, well, let's just try it, okay? You purists out there, bite me. I just want to see, for shits and giggles, I want to see if a number 3, because I've got lots of number 3s. Are you coming out or not? Yes, you are, finally. Okay, which is the pen without the ding? Here's the pen without the ding. The dingless one. Is that going to fit? See, I think this is even too big, but we'll find out. Here's what was in it. Here's what I want to try, because this is longer, but that might work. It may work even if it is longer. Yes, this is the kind of nib I want in this pen. I want it to be that fine and just a little tiny bit flexible. This is the perfect nib, I think, for this pen. So should I leave this in here? Just because? It sticks out a little bit more than it should, so let me just shove it in a little further. I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to leave this here. This pen, I will find a different nib for it. This might be a good pen to put a dip nib in, because there seems to be a lot of space up there. Does this go all the way in? Yeah, the inner that goes all the way to there. I need to sort of know how much space I have in front of me. Yeah, so a dip, this would be a great pen for a dip nib. And this really is exactly what I want for this pen. Now one day if I find an Eversharp nib that is exactly like this Sheaffer number 3, I'll swap it back out. But right now, my Dr. Franken penning, this is the personality of this pen is that line that comes out of it. And why do I think that? The pen itself is very lightweight. It's very delicate in its decoration. It has vertical chased lines, and the slip cap is, this almost seems like this is this seems like this pen is female to me. It's a dame. Or it might be Wally Cox, which might be the same thing. It sort of has a Wally Cox-like voice. Sort of whispery, just a slight rasp to it, or like Mel Torme, you know, sort of velvet fog, is that they called his voice. That's sort of what this pen should sound like if it could talk. Or maybe Sterling Holloway, the Winnie the Pooh actor voice. It's that kind of a voice that this pen seems to want. You know, a pen like this, well, it has a similar nib in it, so never mind what I said about that. But, you know, there's voices like Marie Dressler and Ethel Merman and Jackie Gleason, and then there's voices that are like Mel Torme. And this pen has that sort of softness to it, which matches, I mean, it seems like it would match the pen because of its slenderness and its delicacy and its lightweightedness. And will this fit in there? We're just hold on. So the top of the cap is right there. Yeah, okay, it's not hitting the top of the cap, top of the nib. The nib is safe. I once had a solid gold slip cap Waterman pen of this era, except it was meant to be a slip cap, but it had a conventional nib like this. It was solid gold, the cap and the barrel, and I dropped it. And I was very careful with this pen because it had a magnificently springy Waterman nib in it. The nib was among the rarest feel for the Waterman that I had. It was almost like a dip pen nib. It was very springy and very fine, and I loved it in that pen because of the weight of the pen was just sort of neat. I don't know, it really fit. And I think even the section was gold. It was just an amazing pen. And I dropped it on the floor, and the cap hit first, but the weight of the gold and the rest of the pen kept on wanting to move down at 32 feet per second squared, and the nib, I uncapped the pen and my heart sank because the nib, you know, was bent like this, you know. And I called up Ted Clausen, who also loved that pen, and I said I broke it. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. He said, "Oh no." You know, it wasn't my car, it wasn't my stereo, it wasn't my Victrola, it wasn't my left foot. It was the pen nib. And he knew exactly. God, that's so sad. But in that particular case, I knew in my heart that I was very careful putting the cap on the pen because I knew that the cap was very close to hitting the top of the nib. And it seemed like the nib, I couldn't push the nib further back. And maybe it was because it was the wrong nib in the pen. Entirely possible. Or maybe I had set it to be a particular way so that the nib flowed really well for me, and it was therefore compromised because of this. by moving the feed forward and back, the positioning of the nib on the feed and how far shoved into the pen either one of them can be is a little balancing act that you need to do, which you can do, which affects the flow. Essentially affects the flow of the ink. And sometimes if you want lots of ink, you might want to have both things pushed out a little further. Or you might want to have, I don't know, it's a balancing act. Someone else can explain it better, but I do it by feel and by taste. My taste might be different from yours. And sometimes, especially if you're frankenpenning, and especially if you're frankenpenning using a dip pen nib, you really don't want to shove things in too far because it could crack the nib. So you don't want to harm anything. Like putting this nib in here is not harming the pen or the thing. Maybe this nib would work better if it was shoved in a little tiny bit further, but because this nib is a little bit bigger than it's supposed to be, I don't want to cause any stress for this thing. It's working perfectly fine now. It's not having a problem with the cap. It's tight against the feed. It's perfect, even though it's perfect for my needs. It makes exactly the right kind of line I want. And so I'm not going to change it unless I have to. Let me just measure this again. I'm doing this because I don't want to shove this down further, but there's just a little line right there that makes me think this might supposed to go down a little further, but I don't think so. I don't know if this has an inner cap that hits this thing. Guess I can find that out. It doesn't really have one. It might. But again, this is not. Oh, it might be doing that. God damn it. Okay, let's just take this out. I might be, the point of the nib might be making contact with the back of the pen, and that is the last thing we want. So let's shove this all the way down. Okay, so that's as far down as it's supposed to go. Oh dear. Yeah, it was making contact. So let's just try something else. This is the perfect nib. I really want to have this in here. Here's a perfect example, though, of what one does when one is fitting any nib. And so now I believe I've shoved it in a little further. Yeah, this is going in a little further. And it still writes the way I like it to write. It's funny though. You know, shoving it in a little bit further means that the nib makes contact and my fingers are in a different location. So even though I'll get used to it in about a minute, it's something that I need to get used to. Okay, so let's try this. This goes into here. It still might be making contact. I'll measure it more carefully with something that actually measures rather than something that the back end of a desk pen. Yeah, this is the nib that belongs in here, except it should say Eversharp. This is one of the rare Eversharp nibs that was misspelled to say Schaefer. See, it's even a more valuable nib because of its misprint. Well, hopefully I can make this work, or find a nib that works perfectly with it. Okay, 35 minutes. That's more than enough time for... You've got things to do. Well, you don't. You never have anything to do. You and your trust fund. But all the rest of us have things to do. Like wash the hands. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Bye.